Gonzaga Nation SI, Dan Dickau here alongside fellow Zag Adam Morrison. We're going to break down a little bit of USF and BYU as Gonzaga heads into a really important stretch. And it's important because St. Mary's sitting at 10-0, Gonzaga 8-2. They can't lose any more ground to be able to hopefully extend their conference title winning streak that sits at 10 right now. So Mo, appreciate you joining. Let's just jump right into it. USF, Gonzaga won a nail biter down there off of a Rajir Bolton tip in the closing seconds. What do you remember about that team, and then what do you expect to see in the second matchup?
Well, I remember they did an excellent job on Drew Timme. I think he was 3 of 16 that game. They got two bigs that they, did an excellent job of sitting on his, left shoulder, right hand jump hook and made him counter. And then they dig down a lot defensively. They jumped on us, as far as energy wise. We did an excellent job in the second half of kind of climbing back, but it was legitimately a game that we probably shouldn't have won. You mentioned the tip in by Rashir Bolton on a missed box out that shouldn't have happened if you're a San Francisco fan. So much like the Santa Clara game that we just had, where we started off slow during that, road trip, the second half of that road trip, I think the energy will be much better for us. If we do that, we can take away, their belief. They got a good point guard in Shabazz that's kind of scored, but he can shoot them out of basketball games. Their off guard is decent as well. And then I mentioned they got solid post defenders, but offensively they're not, extremely dynamic. So it'll be interesting to see how we respond. Obviously, coming off a loss with St. Mary's, and then how the lack of energy we played in the first time. So if we can amp that up, I think it should be not an easy win, but it should be a game that we can control.
So you call the games on radio. Do you ever go back and watch them on TV? And the reason I ask this is because as a broadcaster myself, sometimes I'll go back and watch a game that I call to make sure I had a scenario correct in how I explained it. Sometimes I go back, and if I'm not calling the game, to listen to see what another analyst thinks, or just to watch the game in general. I know you're a big basketball fan. You do a tremendous job when I've caught you on the radio with Tom Hudson, but do you go back and watch the TV version as well?
No, because we're on a delay. And so if you remember the infamous Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson fiasco, the radio TV is like 10 seconds behind. So if you call the game and listen to your commentary, it obviously doesn't match up. So I don't go back and rewatch them with my own commentary. I'll go back and watch some clips to prepare, or especially for teams in the non-conference. Definitely I'll watch clips of teams, of their best players, just to see, what I'm looking for, what style of player they are, all that stuff you got to do to be a broadcaster. But as far as our rewatching our games, we don't. Nope.
Do you have a favorite broadcaster from growing up? Because I know you grew up being a Celtics fan. You grew up in Wyoming before you came to Spokane. I grew up in the Portland area, so Bill Schonely, their radio play-by-play guy, to me was like the epitome of listening to a basketball game. Was there a radio or TV guy that you enjoyed watching or listening to when you were growing up?
I don't think so. Everybody kind of, in our era, I guess, is like Bob Costas, just thinking of the Jordan
Yeah.
game, you know what I mean? Late in his career, those are, and Marv Albert, obviously, but I think more so the NBC theme song was kind of like the deal. You know what I'm saying? The John Test one that they
Yeah.
created it. So those are more my memories, more than the broadcasters per se, but we didn't have a local team, like you did Portland,
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like you had a local team, I'm sure that would have been, similar to you.
So San Francisco has former Gonzaga Bulldog Kyle Bankhead on the bench. He was a teammate of mine. We were roommates. Were you teammates with Kyle
Yeah.
when you were there?
Yep.
Give us the Kyle Bankhead story, because I know he's one of the quietest, most surly guys that you can find out there, but he's also one of the best that you can find as a teammate and a basketball guy.
Yeah, he was actually a good mentor. I started the first game that season, and it was his senior year, and I remember him being so upset, but like being professional about it. And then he started the rest of the season because we got blown out by St. Joe's, and that was the right call. But I just remember how professional he handled that situation, and thinking back, like he could tell he was fighting off emotions, but he wasn't negative. He was picking everybody up. Myself, I mean, I'm an incoming freshman, true freshman start over a senior. So I always admired him for that. And then this is the era when we first started playing, poker was on TV, and he was like, I think he had 6 championships or 6 rings. We used to call them like the World Series bracelets, when Blake used to have all those poker tournaments in the dorm. So like he had all the Polaroids with the holding up the money. So that's Kyle was a good poker player is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, great dude, great teammate, kind of surly. If you get him on the outside or at the wrong time, you might get the wrong impression of him, but definitely a good dude, great basketball mind. I'm glad he's back on the West Coast. He did a good job at that. Where was he at?
He
UNC
was at Abilene Christian as well as UNC Greensboro, so he's kind of been
Greensboro.
all over the map
Well,
lately.
they should have beat us, remember that year, but Snacks
Yeah.
mixed 3 his freshman year in Boise. First year I was doing radio. That was a bad scout for us because he had an inside track on our program. Obviously, it was years removed, but he kind of knew how Coach Few ticked and how Brian Michelson ticked and Tommy Lloyd ticked. So that was a bad matchup for us in that first round. And luckily, Snacks drained a 3. But yeah, great dude, and I'm glad to see him back on the West Coast.
Let's go back to those poker nights because Blake was a big time poker player. I know you like to play cards at times. When my senior year, it was myself, Kyle Bankhead, Richard Fox. We were roommates, and it was 222 in the new apartments. I think it was Corkery, and
Corkery.
yeah, we had poker games literally 4 nights a week. We would go to Northern Quest. Coach Few actually banned us from going to Northern Quest for a stretch my senior year. Did you guys get the ban from Coach Few of going out to the casino, or were you guys all in-house poker games?
No, see, they was in-house back then. They used to do the tournaments, and that's when, like I said, it was first starting on television. So everybody tried it and played. And that's when we just go over there more for the social aspect. But the guys that knew what they were doing were just picking people off. And then I do remember going out to Quest, and then I think it was, who really got everybody not to go was Judd Heathcote. Used to go play cards there, and he's the one that told on all of us. God bless him. God rest his, God rest his soul. He's a great dude. But it was just like Judd was like, these guys shouldn't be in here. And that's the guy that really, ratted us out. But it was the right move as 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We shouldn't be in a casino, especially back then when it was, a little bit different as far as the viewpoint of that. So yeah, we stayed away from the casinos.
So let's move to BYU really quickly. This might be the last matchup, Gonzaga against BYU. BYU came into the league with a lot of fanfare, people thinking they were going to take the league over. Didn't happen. Gonzaga never lost a conference tournament or conference title to BYU. BYU is moving to the Big 12. If they don't match up in the tournament, the WCC tournament, this will be the last matchup. What do you have any specific memories of this BYU matchup? Are you glad to see them move on? Do you wish this game would keep going in the near future, even though they won't be in the same league?
Yeah, I don't think it serves us any value, and them. I don't think to keep home and home. I guess maybe play a neutral in like Salt Lake or even Denver or something like that down the road, because they end up usually being a quad 1 win, but that we got to wait till we see how they do in the Big 12. I think it's good for the league that they joined us, but also, I always had the feeling that they felt like they didn't belong either in this conference. And so it's kind of one of those deals, and, it's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. A lot of respect for Mark Pope. It's nothing to do with the program. I think it's just the fanfare that came about when they first joined, that they were going to dominate the league, and the fact that they didn't was probably a little bit embarrassing for them as a whole, because it is a giant brand. So it'll be interesting to see how they play. Because I mean, if you're them, they should have beat St. Mary's. Mahaney hits a fadeaway 3 from 18, or fadeaway 18-foot jumper, like literally, and then Julian Strother hits a 3 after we made 3 threes in the last minute and a half. So if you're them, you're sitting there going, man, we probably would be an NCAA tournament team on, Lenardi's line if we win those 2 games. So I think they probably still feel like they have a lot to play for. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, San Francisco first, but that BYU game is going to be massive. And then if we can take care of business, BYU plays St. Mary's at their place. That'll be a massive game in probably 2 weeks.
So last question, Mo, before I let you go. And I should have asked this in our previous episode this week. During the Santa Clara broadcast, I had a list of players that were my all-time starting 5 for players who played under Mark Few. The producer asked me that morning. I sent him off a quick text with 5 guys and a couple bench guys. And somehow, and I apologize to you after the game, and I'm apologizing to you now. I don't know how I forgot to include Adam Morrison to that list. So here's a public apology to you, Mo. Somehow I screwed that one up, but I think it goes to show, and I think it goes to show just how many good players have come through this program, because had 3 guys that have literally played in the last 4 years in this program, and Drew Timme, Chet Holmgren, and Domantas Sabonis. Well, I guess 6 years with Domantas, or Corey Kispert as well was in that mix. And then the only guy that I went way back for was a guy that I played with, was Blake Stepp. So I throw this apology out with a lot of sincerity. You are on that top 5 list, but
it's all right, man. No problem. Like I said in the text, because I didn't know about it. Obviously, I'm on the radio, and people are texting me, and I'm like, as long as the camera was on me and it wasn't picking my nose, I don't care if you don't have me on your list or not. You know what I mean? Like, I appreciate it, but like, because the camera comes on, you don't. And sometimes people are like, "You're never smiling." I'm like, I'm not on TV. I don't know when the camera's looking at me. You know what I mean? So like, give me a break. So yeah, that's all I cared about, and so I appreciate the apology. It's no sweat off my back. Honestly, like, good story to tell. I can make fun of you now from here on out. So I guess I got one over you. But yeah, it didn't bother me. Like I said, I wasn't picking my nose or anything like that on national television when the camera put on me. So I won.
Well, yeah, you did what, and I will say this: pretty much every game that is broadcast on the TV side, and you know this, I'm sure, they pan over to Adam Morrison, current Gonzaga radio broadcaster. So, so next time you need that pick and roll, you got to make sure you're hiding it well and it doesn't get covered on national TV. But
well, I do it for that reason, not do it for that reason. So I'm like, I'm probably going to make it on television somehow, just how it is, and our proximity to Coach Few, we're always right behind him. So
yeah,
there's always pans to Coach Few to every coach. So I'm like, well, anyway, yeah, I didn't mind. I thought it was funny, to be frank. Like, and I actually saw the St. Mary's coaching staff after the game, and they're like, how the hell did Dan not have you? Because they watched the tape, and I was like, I don't know, man. They were laughing about it too. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, but again, I think it goes to show just how many good players have come through here, especially in recent years. But
no, you're right.
You are at the top of the list, obviously. You're a good friend of mine, and again, apology thankfully accepted. So, Mo, I appreciate the time.
No worries.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week recapping USF, BYU, and hopefully talking about what Gonzaga needs to do to keep pace with St. Mary's.